Episode 3 of the amazing digital circus just dropped, so in this video I want to go over the events of episode 3 and then connect that with the overall lore that I and the community has kind of pieced together thus far. Now, episode 3 starts out with all the characters sitting around, basically running a little experiment with Pomni. Apparently, each of the characters has something unique that only their bodies can do. Most of these abilities are pretty mundane, but Kinger stands out because he can actually make his body glow, and Jax also stands out because he won't share what his ability is. And I also want to point out that as this show continues, Jax seems to be becoming like a less lovable trickster and more of just a jackass, for lack of a better word. And this leads me to believe, as I did in episode 1, that Jax isn't actually a human that has been transported to this virtual world, but I still believe that he is an actual AI that is here to just annoy and kind of sidetrack these people. But with that being said, after having no luck with finding like Pomni's hidden ability, we see that Caine pops up with a new adventure. This time, he's going to send the gang over to a place called the Mildenhall Manor, which is basically a large haunted house that has a bunch of ghosts and ghouls inside. I found it kind of funny that the gang didn't really run into a lot of ghosts while there though. We have this little ghost here who is just adorable in my opinion. Or he was until Jax did this.
Go Fu. The door on the left is the normal door.
Rated WOW for all ages.
The door on the right is the really scary door.
Rated HOT for mature Zoobles only.
It's up to you to decide.
What? Jax!
What? I thought we were supposed to capture all the ghosts.
And there are a couple more ghosts that kind of pop up later in the episode, but I'll talk about them as they pop up. Now, the gang had the option of going in one of two doors. They could go through the normal door, which is basically the safe route, or they could choose the scary door, which looks like this. Now, after Kinger and Pomni get sucked into the scary door, we cut over to Caine and Zooble, who seem to be having like a therapy session, and while at first glance it just seems like a funny scene, we learn a few things from their interaction. The first important thing that we learned is that Zooble has already expressed like their sadness to Caine in the past, yet he's forgotten for some reason. It gives off the impression that even though Caine is meant to help the people trapped in this digital world, his programming is very limited, so he can't truly express like the empathy or the humanity that they need to actually care for these people. And I want you to remember this point because I'm going to come back to it when this next therapy scene pops up. Now next we move back over to Pomni and Kinger, who have appeared in this weird room with a bunch of heads hanging on the wall. And this creepy one in the middle has a bit of a backstory behind it.
My name is Baron Theodore Mildenhall. Hunting has been a hobby of mine for as long as I can remember, although one could say it eventually became more of an obsession. The creature you see before you is one I've been pursuing for years. Not quite a man, but not quite an animal. Something unholy, something evil. I took it upon myself to spend every waking moment doing all I could to protect my family from the creature, hoping that when I'd eventually killed it, I would be freed from this awful feeling, this inescapable dread. I was wrong.
I also found it interesting that we see like faces in the room that look like Pomni's and also Gangle's face. And I'm not sure if this means that there's been other people that have taken the form of a gesture or if this is just like a coincidence. Because when going back to episode 1 and remembering that scene that had all the doors, we didn't get to see every one of those doors. So it's possible that there is another gesture that has popped up in this world at one point or another. Next, we see Pomni and Kinger trying to find a key so that they can actually take this elevator to get out of this place. But this is when they actually run into another tape.
Tuesday, December 4th. Although I had shot the creature multiple times in its vitals and severed its head to keep as a prize on my wall, my troubles were just beginning. I took my eyes off the body for what felt like only a minute. When I looked back, the body was gone. The creature was not dead, and it would be back to reclaim what I'd taken from it. If anyone is listening to this, all I ask of you is one thing. Do not let the head out of your sight. You have been warned.
And if it wasn't bad enough that they took their eyes off the head, the entire area goes pitch black, ensuring that they can't see at all until the head actually pops up and opens its mouth. Now, it's hard to say for sure, but it seems like this character may be inspired by Pennywise. The rows of teeth and also the lights in the mouth are kind of a dead giveaway. Now after that, we're taken back to Zoobles and Caine, and we figure out why Zooble is upset. She basically doesn't like the body that she was forced into, and we learn that the reason that Caine forgot about this issue is because he feels like he's already solved it. And I think that this is an important point. It seems that Caine can only remember or acknowledge things that he feels haven't been solved. So since he gave Zoobles this chest of body parts that she can use to swap out to her liking, he no longer views her issue as a real problem, even though she still clearly does. And this next part is even more important. We basically see this virtual world start to crumble when Caine is faced with the idea that he may not be good at his actual job.
Caine, nobody likes your stupid adventures.
Ha ha! Good one, Zooble.
Ragatha's just too nice to say anything. Jax just likes to fuck with everybody. Gangle's too shy to speak up. Kinger's insane. And Pomni, she looks traumatized every time she comes back from one.
Oh, Zooble, Zooble, Zooble. Making adventures is my art. It's all I exist to do, all I'm good at. And, what you're saying could imply that I'm bad at the only thing I'm good at, and that... that'd be...
Whose therapy session is this again?
Oh yeah! We need to get to the bottom of your behavioral issues. I'm gonna show you some ink blots, and you're gonna say the first word that comes to your mind.
And I don't know if this is foreshadowing something that's going to happen later in the series, but I wouldn't be surprised if like this insecurity actually turned into a real issue later on the line for the people here. Now, after that, we go back to Pomni and Kinger, who are now in the basement with the corpse of the former owner of the manor. They are able to take his gun, and one thing that you may notice in this scene is that Kinger seems to be a lot more sane than usual, but we'll come back to that point later in the episode. This next scene was actually pretty scary.
I think we may have a problem this way too.
Just leave it to me. I can handle this.
Even though this isn't like a horror series, they did a really good job of making this monster legit creepy, and the twist of the owner trying to get them down to hell so that he can take their body is also nice. Now in the next scene, we see Rag, Jax, and Gangle having tea with the wife of the manor's owner, and they get a congratulations for taking the pacifist route, even though Jax doesn't seem to be happy about it, and we can kind of assume that this is why they actually tied him up. If they would have let him run free, he would have found a way to just cause havoc, like in the last episode where he allowed the fudge monster to get into the village. Next, we see Pomni and Kinger are in hell, even though it doesn't look like how I think many of us imagine hell would look. And while Pomni is kind of freaking out a bit, Kinger seems to be very calm and in control, which is very rare for him. And since Pomni is panicking, she tries to run through this room, and then we see this happen.
Just gonna try going fast.
Wait, Pomni! 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 Hey! You get out of her, you damn evil souls! How's your wife, Kinger? Hey! You all right there?
No.
I'm guessing the souls are attracted to living things. Just want a vessel to be able to leave with. Man. 7 years of computer science for this, huh?
Why?
Now, a couple of things stood out in that clip. The first thing being when the possessed Pomni asked about Kinger's wife. I thought this was interesting because this is an adventure created by Caine, so it's weird that he would add something in this world that would say something so hurtful to one of the characters that he's supposed to be helping stay sane. Especially when you consider that part of the reason that Kinger lost his mind in the first place was because his wife got abstracted. which we first got hints about in episode 1 when we saw the queen chess piece with the X over her face. But this episode here confirms it.
Right after my wife had abstracted. I don't recall the exact string of events, but we both ended up in the fort together. And it was dark. The darkness seemed to calm her down a bit. The harsh, jagged edges smoothed out, and she didn't seem aggravated anymore. She wasn't the same as before, but she was calm enough to touch one last time before she got sent to the cellar. I'm always taken back to that moment when engulfed in darkness.
You had a wife? Like, here in the circus?
Yeah. She was funny, creative, really into entomology.
We also got confirmation that Kinger was involved in computer science, which adds to the belief that he was one of the programmers for this digital world. And maybe he and his wife volunteered to enter this world, not knowing that they would be trapped here and basically lose their minds. Now, after a touching scene where Kinger tells Pomni that the worst thing that can happen in this world is showing people that you don't love them, he guides her out of the darkness using his ability to light up. It was a very emotional scene, especially when you see that Kinger loses his mind again once he makes it back to the light. But one thing did stick out to me here. When they make it back home, Kinger goes back to his pillow fort, and I'm starting to think that the reason he has this fort is so that he can be in the darkness, at least somewhat. And in a way, this may be what allows him to keep himself somewhat sane. At first, I thought he was just a goofy character, but after learning a bit more about him, his story is actually a little bit tragic. So while it's hard to say for sure, I think this episode has reaffirmed my belief that the characters in his animation were all involved in like computer science or video game development in some which way or form. And they are currently stuck in the virtual world that they've created. Caine is basically an AI that understands that he needs to keep his creator sane, but doesn't have all the tools necessary to do so consistently, which is why so many characters have abstracted. And based on Kinger's speech to Pomni, I assume that she's going to play some major role in helping them break free of this world. I've already spoken about how Harlequins are known to be like unlikely heroes in literature, usually messing up the plans of like a king or some type of ruler. And I think Pomni is kind of gearing up to play that role as well in this animated series. If you haven't checked out episode 3 yet yourself, you can watch me react to it here or go check it out on the Glitch channel. As always, thank you for watching the video, and we'll see you tomorrow with another one. Peace, peace.